to speak up.
Oh, yeah,
So
I'll
don't
speak
make a
up.
comment. Don't make a comment to you. Make a comment to everybody
Okay.
speaking up to you.
Ready, Dr. Crowe? All right, we're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This time I will call upon Ms. Flatness to do the roll call, please.
Karen Flatness, aye. Travis Ralph.
Aye.
Rick Schultz.
Aye.
Joanne Maloney.
Aye.
Neil Schlake.
Aye.
Rich Miller.
Aye.
Dan Schmidt.
Aye.
All members are present then. We have an agenda in front of us this evening. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda, Dr. Carlson?
No.
I would entertain a motion to approve.
So move. Second.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Schlake, seconded by Mr. Routh to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor say aye.
Roll call vote. Mr.
Excuse
Schultz.
me.
Aye.
Okay. Karen Flatness, aye. Joanne Maloney.
Aye.
Rich Miller.
Aye.
Travis Ralph.
Aye.
Neil Schlake.
Aye.
Dan Schmidt.
Aye.
Rick Schultz.
Aye.
Motion carried then.
Yes. Public comments tonight. There are any with us tonight, Dr. Carlson?
No.
Okay, we will move right into the report section, starting with Dr. Carlson, please.
Thank you. I don't have much to add to the written report. Just to emphasize a couple things, the board does have a budget work session set for Monday, June 1, beginning at 5:30. And the site location will be based out of the Secondary Media Center, but we also will have the option to attend remotely. And I just want to make a note too, highlight the last slide of my report that we are in the planning stage of setting an end of the year employee recognition, and we are looking at Thursday, May 28th at 1:30, and we're going to be doing that virtually, and I would invite the board members, we will invite you to join all our employees to join us virtually on that recognition. I know that with that, I know the principals have their reports. I'm going to give them an opportunity to highlight. I know that on some of the information will come later as well for some of them. But I will call upon those two. Mr. Anderson, do you have anything right now to add to your written report? And then we'll have Mr. Bunn follow.
I do not.
Okay, thank you.
The only thing that I would have would be that,
a huge thank you to Carrie Olson and the staff for creating a video for our seniors. And I will get that as kind of we got that done a little late to get into the report section. So I will provide that address for you. Also, Sue Culseth, for if you go out to Reese Field there and see the Panther sign and the Seniors 2020, just incredible. So thank you to all those folks who've been part of all things that we're trying to do for our seniors.
Any questions, board members, of the three of us on the reports?
All right, at this time, we would take any board member comments. There are no comments from the board members. We'll move right into the information and communications. ASME negotiations met earlier today in the Secondary School Media Center. Once again, the budget work session is scheduled for Monday, June 1st. And that will be here at the Secondary School Media Center at 5:30. And then again, next June 15th, the regular scheduled board meeting will be at the Secondary School Media Center. With that, we'll move into the consent agenda items this evening. Dr. Carlson, would you introduce those, please?
Thank you. You have board bills amounting to $440,252.23. We have a few donations this evening. A donation of study books for staff, professional development by Renee Moravec in the amount of $139.90. Our PTO, two donations, one for reading comprehension in the amount of $987.80, and for roller skating, $552. That brings a total of $1,679.70 for this month, and we are keeping track of the school year to date, and we are at about $51,010.47. Also in your consent, we annually look at providing the opportunity for the board to approve a student insurance service for the optional student insurance program that they have for this coming school year for 2020-2021. And the cost has not increased for those families. Under workforce, we list these four names under resignations. We have Karen Lundberg, elementary paraprofessional. Karen has been with us for 16 years. Todd Olson, grade 7-12 math teacher, and Mr. Olson has been with us for this year. Jackie Schultz, resignation for JV volleyball. And then Carrie Boondorf, resignation for head cheer leading coach. So I want to thank each of those individuals for the service that they have provided to the students in the school district. We have a retirement from Mr. Frank Whitcomb. Mr. Whitcomb has served in multiple roles with our music program over the years, most recently 5th grade band, and then also offering some sixth grade music opportunities. He has really led our media center at the secondary school, and then also this year he had the opportunity to be the teacher in charge of our YSL program, which the board members may remember Mr. Whitcomb not too long ago provided a report featuring that program. Under employment, we welcome the following three new members to our teaching staff: Luke Starina for 6th grade, Laura Garlow, 4th grade, and then Nick Seiler for grade 7-12 math. Annually at this time, the Board of Education approves an agreement for our certified occupational therapist assistant, which we own the contract, but we have worked and shared that contract with the Janesville, Waldorf, Pemberton Public Schools. And so you're asked to approve that partnership, and actually that Board of Education is doing the same thing this evening. And finally, on the consent, statewide enrollment options. We have one student that has moved out of our district, so becoming a non-resident, that is staying to finish out this school year. So that is the consent, items on the consent that the board is asked to consider. If you have a wish to pull any item out to consider separately, individually, you may do so by a simple request. Otherwise, it would be a motion to accept or approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion has been made by Mr. Rouse, seconded by, excuse me, who was the second? And Mr.
Dan.
Dan.
Pardon my voice.
Seconded by Mr. Schmidt. At this time, I will call upon Karen Flatness to do a roll call vote, please.
Karen Flatness, aye. Joanne Maloney.
Aye.
Rich Mueller.
Aye.
Travis Rouse.
Aye.
Neil Slate.
Aye.
Dan Schmidt.
Aye.
Rick Schultz.
Aye. Motion carries. This time we will have a report about the distance learning plan.
So I will call upon both Mr. Anderson and Mr. Bunn. I am trying to get up the, there we go, for Mr. Anderson in the elementary. And then, so as soon as he's done, Mr. Bunn, or some of this may be kind of combined. So I will let the two of you go ahead and introduce this.
So at the elementary, there are no significant changes that we have, but I do want to just highlight a few areas. First of all, our staff does meet weekly in our PLC, and I've appreciated this opportunity to connect and see staff, even though they're working remotely. They've been extremely diligent about working with the specialists and working together to incorporate blended activities for our students and making accommodations for students as well. Another thing that I feel they've been doing well is to communicate with our students daily and also with our families through email, Google Meet, and various phone calls. And also several of our teachers do meet on a regular basis with parents via Google Meet, individual meetings, but also then group meetings for families as well. What you have in front of you is we met and talked about the end of the year, what that would look like for our students and staff. And our last day of school will be Thursday, May 28th, which is what we had on the calendar. And May 21st will be the final day for our teachers to administer assessments to our students, and then on the 22nd of May, communicating out those deadlines, requiring the deadline for those projects and activities that are out there right now that the students are completing. Also on the 22nd, we are going to celebrate our kindergarten graduation. We've worked with the Steele County Public Health, law enforcement, and the city of Ellendale, and I feel like we have a safe plan to honor and recognize those kindergarten students. We have all their pictures up here in the media center on the wall, and we'll invite families after that day, not during that day, but on their own, to come and take a picture if they'd like. Then the week after Memorial Day, 26th, 27th, and 28th, will be student turn-in of textbooks and devices. That'll be a drive-through drop-off. We'll have gloved and masked staff that will collect those things, and teachers will have pushed assignments out to students that don't involve devices for those 3 days.
Okay, Mr. Bond? Is this
Okay.
Go ahead.
You can bring that up. Really, the only change in the plan that we kind of made throughout was that we changed the time in which some assignments were due from 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. And then I think a little bit later we'll talk about the end of the year, but again, some of the same things. I know the teachers have been working absolutely tirelessly, doing Google Meets. Mondays, of course, are always the big day. There are more people around in the school to make sure that that's when we have virtual classes, have access to solid internet, and you know, the other days students sometimes will do work on their own, sometimes teachers will have additional times to meet, so that's kind of up to the teacher in particular. We did switch a few students to packets because they had some various barriers, whether that was unstable internet or just struggling with digital format. And so we've kind of done some packets as well. Dale, can you scroll up a little bit? Oh, no, or excuse me, down.
Okay.
Your other way. The other up. And I know we'll talk about this later, but we're looking at final day for assessments will be the 21st. 22nd will be a wrap up, activities, different things. And then we will also start our device turn in, the 26, 27, 28. Now, the thing about that is if there are students that need their devices beyond or during up until the 28th, they have that ability to do so. So we're working with Angie and Terry in terms of the collection process and communication with parents. So that pretty much takes us through an update with distance learning.
Thank you, and I'll just add to, and they acknowledge too, in addition to the distance learning, the essential services with our childcare and meals, so much gratitude given to those staff members who have, for the most part, those folks, they're reporting to the building sites each day, and so great deal thanks to them as well as to all. So you heard from the principals each of kind of the plans of how we, for students, wrap up the school year, which is not far away. So just like it has since March 18th, everything has looked different, and so this, to a great degree, will look different as well as we bring a close to the year. Board members, do you have questions for Mr. Anderson and Mr. Bunn regarding what we are doing and for the next 2 weeks and wrapping up the school year? when it comes to the distance learning model specifically and any of the other essential services.
I guess the one question I had is overall, now that we're through the majority of it, I know we got a week left or whatever, but were you guys pretty satisfied in what you seen in the kids' learning for what we all went through, I guess, in a nutshell?
Satisfied versus face to
What you
face.
had to work with, I mean, yeah, I mean, it did, I'm assuming we didn't get as good as we would have face to face, but overall, did some fall in the hallway that we lost through the process, or did everybody seem to at least make some gain, I guess?
Well, I would say a mixture of both. We had some kids that were actually struggling somewhat in the building, and then when we moved to distance learning, seemed to do, you know, fairly well. And we had some kids that were not doing so well, and you know, face to face, and still are struggling. And then we had some that, you know, were struggling or not struggling, and then now are struggling some. So a lot of times that's, you know, situational. But I know that it's not from a lack of our staff trying, I can say that. Some of the kids we saw did taper off just a touch. They're getting tired. They're on their computers all day long. It's been a challenge, but it's working.
I think that the efforts from students, staff, and families has been remarkable in what we've been able to accomplish. Obviously, it's, you know, here too, it's not the same as being able to have them here and being next to them and working with them closely, but I think that everyone has come up with plans to do the very best that we can during this time.
Dave, I know you mentioned earlier that you thought this might help with our flex learning days. Do you still feel that what we've gone through right now is going to help significantly in what we do on those days?
I would say definitely. Just the amount of technology that folks have, you know, gotten exposed to, or you know, in some cases forced to. I think it's incredible. I do see us being able to make those flex days stronger than they have been.
Anything else, board members? Questions?
Are the essential services going to end then at what time, or what is the date where our food service will come to an end, and
Sure, yes.
what have those numbers done throughout this process, I guess, if you could please?
Yes, the plan for the meals, we will continue those actually through Friday, May 29. Actually, so our last distribution will be Thursday, May 28th. And that distribution will include both meals, both the Friday meals as well on the 29th. And then that will end at that point. Similar, and the meal count, I don't have the most recent as far as, I don't want to put Ms. Colseth on spot, do you know? But we've been reporting those daily, and so I'm not sure if we're still in that 600 range or not, but.
So it was very well used then, is what you're
Yeah,
saying as a district?
yes, yes.
Very,
Yep, and
Effective
just
program.
outstanding efforts with our food service, but so many different people involved in making that happen, the distributions and so on. And then our child care, similar. we are actually, I believe, ending that on Thursday, May 28th, I believe. And then we're still working and waiting, but every indication is that we will be able to move forward with our summer school-age care program, which includes offering that child care to people, but we'll be able to go back to that fee-based program. So we'll be able to take fees for that service. And that would be really worked through our community education program and the staff within that program. So some details are still being worked on that, but both those meals and childcare, as we know it today, will be ending at the end of next week. Anything else for our principals, myself, regarding that?
Okay, with that, we'll move to recommended action items for this evening, starting with the child care leave request. Dr. Carlson, please.
Thank you. You have in your packet a request from our school nurse, Carrie Petzinger, requesting a leave of absence beginning approximately January 4th. I think that's when we come back, and then through the end of the school year for the purpose of child care. And so we've included her request in your board packet. And so if I put a potential motion for the board's consideration, simply approving Carrie Petzinger's request for a leave of absence from her assignment as school nurse beginning approximately January 4th, 2021, and extending through the end of the 2020-2021 school year for the purpose of child care.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Moved by Rich Mueller, seconded by Neil Schlake to approve Carrie Petzinger's request for a leave of absence from her assignment as school nurse beginning approximately January 4th, 2020, extending through the end of the 2020-21 school year for the purpose of child care. Ms. Flatness, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Karen Flatness, aye. Joanne Maloney.
Aye.
Rich Mueller.
Aye.
Travis Ralph.
Aye.
Neil Schlake.
Aye.
Dan Schmidt.
Aye.
Rick Schultz.
Aye. Motion carries. Moving on to our 2020-21 staffing plan. Dr. Carlson, please.
Thank you. In your packet, you have the updated, what I refer to as a staffing memo for the board. And it really is very similar. There's very few changes from what was presented to the board on April 20th. In fact, I do not have another PowerPoint to share with you. I was just going to highlight the changes. You'll see that what's added to this report is a staffing reduction since April 20th, including 2 7-hour paraprofessional positions. And I'm going to just scroll down, see if I can. And with one of these positions in each building, both these positions will be vacant at the end of this school year due to resignations. And at this time, both positions, we've taken those and they've been reflected in this as far as in the staffing plan, but also we've reflected the removal or the not replacing the positions in tonight's proposed 2021 budget as well. Administration will monitor changes in student needs leading up to the 2020-2021 school year and will present any staffing modifications and requests to the board, including the paraprofessional positions. You will also note a slight change on page 6 under the staffing plan budget impact. where I provide a little bit more detail in summarizing the reductions and increases along with estimated costs or savings. There was, in the preliminary report, there was an error totaling 0.2 full-time employment or FTE more in teacher reductions noted as secondary teaching overload positions. It was, in the preliminary one, it was 0.6, and actually it's 0.8. So I'm happy to take questions. Again, this is using the best information that we have available at this time. And that's always the case. We need to closely monitor, and we'll see. We don't know what the fall looks like exactly, and so we will be monitoring closely throughout the coming weeks and months. So happy to take questions, otherwise looking for a consideration of a motion to simply approve the 2020-2021 staffing plan as presented.
This is Joanne Maloney. I make a motion to approve the staffing plan as presented.
Second it.
Motion made by Joanne Maloney, seconded by Neil Schlake to approve the staffing plan as presented. Is there any further discussion? This time I will call upon Ms. Flatness to do a roll call vote, please.
Karen Flatness, aye. Joanne Maloney.
Aye.
Rich Mueller.
Aye.
Travis Brown.
Aye.
Neil Schlake.
Aye.
Dan Schmidt.
Aye.
Rick Schultz.
Aye. Motion carries. This time we will look at the 2019-2020 revised budget. Ms. Christopherson?
Yes, I'll have Ms. Christopherson lead on this. Do we want to start with the PowerPoint? Do we just want to put that up, or you want
yeah.
to put that?
Yep,
Okay.
nope, that'd be good.
So we will first, Ms. Christopherson will present the 2019-20 revised budget first and go from there. So,
Okay, so as we move down to the first slide that's showing there, this is back to May of 2019, what you guys adopted at that time. Pertaining to the 6 operating funds, you note the projected deficit that was approved was just over 130,000. We then move forward to, we've done a couple revisions during the year, but if we just look at where we were in February, before we had ever heard of COVID or what this was going to involve, we were still at that time showing a projected deficit of about 145,000. So here we are today, and we do have some positive news to report in all of this. This slide shows our latest projections of how we will, well, what we're going to approve tonight, what our best guess is right now to end the fiscal year. We're now showing an increase between all of the funds of just over 30,000. Of course, this is unaudited, and there's many unknowns, including how we're going to come out third-party billing, tuition bills for our students who are going to other programs and whatnot. Another thing I wanted to note, this does not include any federal COVID relief money. You've probably seen a lot about it. We've read a lot of ideas and suggestions. I don't know at this point when we're going to see any and how we're going to see it. I don't know if it's going to get into next year. So again, we think there's still some federal money that we will benefit from, but this does not include it because we don't know what it is. So if you compare this with the prior slide, you'll note that our planned revenue in the general fund increased by about 52,000, and we're going to get into some detail as why. And projected expenditures decreased greatly by about 175,000. Resulting in a revised budget increase of about 124,000 in the general fund. Now we're gonna hop over to something that we've kind of worked off of before as we've done these budget revisions during the year. This is getting to be kind of a lengthy document, but this is our about fourth time going through these numbers. You all have this. It starts with what you adopted last May. This is just about up, but I'll just kind of talk through. Then we got together in November and we talked through a few things. As we wait for that to come up, one of the things we talked about at that time is we had received some positive news regarding special ed aid and just the basic formula, because we had primarily at the elementary level, we experienced a uptick in enrollment. And at that time, we told you we're only going to take about half of the expected increases, because a lot of years in January, we see a drop off at the end of the first semester. So we just didn't want to be overly optimistic those numbers were going to hold, but they have. They've held nicely. So back in November, we took about half. Now we're going to recognize what we hope will be the other half of that. So if you scroll down to, you'll go past what we revised, keep going, in February, and then we're going to just jump into what's happened since February. So just up a little bit. Okay, so what I was talking about, those first two lines are really, if you went back to this first page, it's kind of recognizing the other half of what we are hoping we are going to receive based on our enrollment staying strong and some news on special ed funding. The next two items, just at this point, just a ballpark on COVID-related lost revenue. So medical assistance revenue, that's that third-party billing where we're working face-to-face with providing billable services. Some things are still being able to be done. Speech therapy, for example. They can do that through what's called telemed, and we'll get some revenue back on that. But best guess is right now we're going to decrease that expected revenue $15,000. Athletic fees, as soon as we knew we weren't going to have a spring season, a group of them, Terry, Mr. Stork, they went to work on finding out what families wanted us to do with their athletic fees. We made those adjustments, but all in all, lost revenue on the budget of over $5,000. We actually would have, we had a really successful spring sports sign up, so we would have probably been increasing that had this not happened. Technology fees, that's just going to get a little tricky as devices are coming back at the end of the year and the kids aren't here to try to collect fees from, so not sure what's going to happen. So that kind of explains the increase in revenue. And then we get down to expenditures. The first couple of things are and aren't necessarily related to COVID. While there will be some unemployment, there was also some things in the works outside of COVID, so we won't spend too much time there. As we get down to this next section, quite a ways down, a lot of these savings are because of going to the distance learning. You know, what happened when we sent those kids home starting March 16th, just a lot of things came to an end, you know, from traveling back and forth to traveling on field trips to extracurricular to some contracted services. A biggie for us is substitute costs. You know, if a person is gone now, they still put it in, they make arrangements with their kids, so we're not paying an outside sub. If you get down to maintenance, that's not all necessarily COVID. That also is a lot of how the year went. We had a nice winter, we didn't have the snow that we've experienced. But when they left, you know, we turned the lights off, we turned the temp down, we stopped flushing. You know, it's just been quite a saving. You know, supplies, we stopped buying supplies other than what we needed for cleaning. Equipment, I'd like to think not as much broke down, although we still had some things. Transportation, you know, well, while we have fuel contracted and locked in, we'll work out a settlement with CFS to buy that contract out. But, you know, clearly our guys are delivering material with vans. That's a lot cheaper to run than a bus. So anyway, while I wouldn't necessarily say that's all COVID, that explains the big turnaround for us. So that's the good news, you know. So with that said, we'll just scroll down to the bottom and show you kind of fund by fund how things came out. Good news for the general fund. Food service and community ed, I'm sure you've seen and read a lot on that. You know, those programs are based on fees paid by families. We kept everybody employed, doing things. But right now, that's where we're estimating things are going to end. Now, we have the ability this summer to take a look and do some shifting and whatnot. But right now, this is what we're asking you to approve. And any questions before we get to the motion?
Would it, as we move into the 2020, 2021 budget development, we'll talk more about, as Ms. Christopherson alluded to, some of these, especially on the expenditure side, for example, will not necessarily be suggested or reflected in next year's budget because of those things that are unique to the COVID. So, but we'll talk more about that in a little bit. Any other questions? We would ask the board to right now consider then approving, the motion would be to approve the revised 2019-2020 budget as presented with projected revenue of $10,944,548 and expenditures of $10,911,776.
I'll make a motion to approve that budget.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Schlake, seconded by Mr. Routh to approve the revised 2019-20 budget with a projected revenue of $10,944,548 and expenditures of $10,911,776. Is there any further discussion? This time I will call on Ms. Flatness for a roll call vote, please.
Karen Flatness, aye. Joanne Maloney.
Aye.
Rich Mueller.
Aye.
Travis Routh.
Aye.
Neil Slake.
Aye.
Dan Schmidt.
Aye.
Rick Schultz.
Aye. Motion carried. Moving forward to 2020-21, the proposed budget. Carla?
Yes, so the first slide here, we gave you just a quick glance at it in April, and then kind of came back and went to work and put together. You've seen a lot of the things on this list. I think there are a few ads. Anything you want to?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I noted already in the staffing plan, you'll see the para positions referenced here.
So we just took
yeah.
that list, totals about 163,000, made the adjustments in what we presented in April. So comparing the anticipated revenue with planned expenditures under the general fund, you can see that we continue to have a deficit budget at this point of about 195,000. Overall planned deficit of about 210 or about 1.8%. Adjustments made since April, we kind of went over a few of those things. And so, again, with that said, it's that time of year where we would typically ask you to approve this adopted budget. The general fund, just under a $200,000 deficit overall, about 210.
And as with the revised 2019-2020, this is based again on the assumptions and the best information we have available. And So this is where we are at. I know that the board had set a finance goal for this year of, most recently, no more than up to 200,000. When we were talking about that, we might be, it's getting down to real specifics, but we were talking much about the general fund balance, and the impact, and even more specifically at that time, talk about unassigned versus the restricted. But as Ms. Christopherson mentioned, and as you can see, where we are at right now, it's that in the general funds, at about 195,000. And we still will need to be working on this, and as the board looks forward to the June 1 work session, when we even look beyond 2020 and 2021, it'll give us another opportunity to have more discussion. But this is where we're at tonight, and we are asking for any further guidance, direction from the board, and any questions you may have. But you can see the motion. And as we've shown, with a projected revenue of $11,645,977, expenditures of $11,856,039. What questions could we respond to board members with?
I didn't take the time to look back, Carl, but what was that 210 figure? What was that the last time we met? Was it about that, or was it? Was it like it was more than that, wasn't it?
Just under 2 there, right? From April?
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, and we don't
It's
have,
about the same. Well, yeah,
we don't have that, it was,
12.
the total was just pretty, well, you can see it, pretty much right at 2.
There's just been a really strange year. So normally the state gives us these revenue projection models in January. Well, we got them about 3 weeks ago. And that, again, nothing related to COVID. It was that far behind. Once we got those actual models that, like we usually hear when the legislature says we're going to give a 2% funding increase. Well, we don't hear or get all the little details that go into everything else. So we got those, we made some adjustments, some were good, some were bad, in every category, but yeah, in the end, I think we found some reductions in the general fund, the others, things changed a little. And it's important to note, this, as always, we make a lot of assumptions, but this clearly is assuming we are back in session 100% like we're used to. The moment any of that changes, that'll be part of our first budget revision, of course. But this is what we know today.
Yep, this would be, as within a year, this is the official kind of starting point that we start to make our definite plans on, instructional-wise, staffing-wise, and so on. But then, obviously, we monitor, and we'll have to, the next, according to the budget development calendar, the next official time the board would revise this would be in November. And, but we'll just see. A number of things could change between now and then, and whether or not the board feels we need to come back and have more conversation. Again, we will be talking in general about all of this again on June 1 on that revenue and expenditure side. But
Are there any other questions? Otherwise, we would entertain a motion to approve this proposed budget.
I'll make a motion to approve the proposed budget as presented.
I'll second.
Thank you, Joanne. Motion made by Mr. Rouse, seconded by Ms. Maloney to approve the proposed 2021 budget with a projected revenue of $11,645,977 and a projected expenditures of $11,856,039, resulting in a planned budget deficit of $210,062. Is there any further discussion?
So my question is, going into this, approving that, and if things do get worse, take COVID out of it, how are we going to get back to zero, or whatever referendum dates, or, I mean, I guess there's never a good time, and I don't mean to bring that up now, but what are our options to approve a huge minus thing after having a good thing come through of what last year's budget was? I guess, I don't know what are our choices.
In my opinion, that's going to be a large part of your conversation on June 1 at the budget work session. Where do we go from here, depending on what we know? But as you're saying, Mr. Slake, what we have to do right now is we're preparing for what do I dare say the normal? I don't think we're not expecting the normal, and so that's a little bit why it's a challenge. But how do we get back to zero? That's where that conversation needs to go, and it's going to be that expenditure, revenue, or a combination of both. And so you asked about,
Referendums and stuff.
referendum. That will be part of that conversation on June 1 too, when you're looking at revenue generating possibilities out there. I don't know if I'm getting even
No, I
close to
guess
your.
it just blows me away to try to keep moving forward with such a big number, even after the good news we just had.
I think,
But
yeah,
I'll wait till June
a
1st.
positive, if everything ends this school year like we are projecting tonight, then the positive is those previous work sessions when we were focusing in on our fund balance, it might have given a little bit of reprieve just from this year, but that was unplanned, going back to February and even early March.
And
But
the caution to that statement is that we don't wish that situation to repeat itself.
right.
And the projection beyond this does not solve it without some drastic either increases of revenue or
Right.
drastic cuts, so.
Just
those
as
will
you
be
saw
topics.
how we projected the best we can of how we're going to end this school year, we're applying much of, assumptions and so on, and you see the numbers of where we're sitting for next year. So there is work, a lot of work that needs to be done, and we've acknowledged that in our past board work sessions as well.
Good question though, Mr. Schley. Are there any further discussions before we vote on the motion on the floor? Okay, Ms. Flatness, if we could have a roll call vote, please.
Karen Flatness, aye. Joanne Maloney.
Aye.
Rich Mueller.
Aye.
Travis Rao.
Aye.
Neil Schleich.
Aye.
Dan Schmidt.
Aye.
Rick Schultz.
Aye. Motion carries. Moving on to the health insurance bid. Dr. Carlson, please.
Yes, we're asking the board's consideration for approval of the health insurance plans and carrier tonight. The recommendation is for the district to renew with the Public Employee Insurance Program, or PEP, as the health insurance provider for this coming fiscal year. And as you know, this was new a year ago, and so our insurance committee had an opportunity to kind of get a check-in on how things have gone, and then we continue to work closely with our consultants. So at this point, we are just recommending that we are continuing and renewing with PEP and this plan for the coming school year. On the screen, you can see kind of a an overview of the different plans that our employees opt for, and then where those rates are currently at for next year. I want to note too, it's not with the health insurance specific plan, but I just made a note too that for next year, we have worked for our employees to have, our qualifying employees to have a dental option available where the employee does pay the 100% of that plan costs. And that would be something new, but that's not an increased cost to the district. So happy to respond to questions. Otherwise, looking for a potential motion that would be simply approved to renew with the Public Employee Insurance Program as the health insurance provider for 2020-2021.
So move.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Schlake, seconded by Mr. Routh to approve to renew the Public Employee Insurance Program as the health insurance provider for 2020-21 as presented. Is there any further discussion? Ms. Flatness, roll call vote, please.
Karen Flatness, aye. Joanne Maloney.
Aye.
Rich Mueller.
Aye.
Travis Rose.
Aye.
Neil Schleich.
Aye.
Dan Schmidt.
Aye.
Rick Schultz.
Aye. Motion carries. It's the time of year where we approve the graduation class of 2020 and the ceremony. Dr. Carlson, please.
Thank you. And this is an exciting time. And I know that there's so many things that have gone on and conversations and emotions and so on, but I just still want to say it's an exciting time, and we just want to do everything we can to celebrate our class of 2020. I know Mr. Bunn will talk more specifically in a moment about ceremony plans, but each year we ask the board to approve the list of our class, our students, and always with the note that this is assuming that they all successfully complete their required graduation requirements in the remaining days. So this list, Mr. Bunn has forwarded this for the board's recommendation. And Mr. Bunn, any additional comments regarding the list of graduates at this time?
No, just as Dale said, that all this too is dependent on, there's a few students doing some credit recovery as well as the regular classes. So providing they meet all the requirements, these folks we recommend for graduation.
So at this time, the board has customarily then approved a motion to approve the class of 2020 graduation graduates as presented by Mr. Bunn.
I'll make a motion to approve the list of graduates.
I'll second.
Motion made by Mr. Mueller, seconded by Ms. Maloney to approve the graduation class of 2020 as presented. Is there any further discussion? Well, Karen? Sorry, getting ahead of myself.
Karen Flatness, aye. Joanne Maloney.
Aye.
Rich Mueller.
Aye.
Travis Rose.
Aye.
Neil Schleich.
Aye.
Dan Schmidt.
Aye.
Rick Schultz.
Aye. Motion carries.
Mr. Schultz, apologize, we did intend to have two separate motions on that, and I think what's listed was, we do have that on your motion sheet. We'll add another separate motion for the ceremony.
All right.
So,
And with that, I would assume Mr. Bunn would like to tell us some details on that ceremony.
Go ahead.
I
Mr.
would.
Miller.
So our plan, know that, I guess before we start into the plan, know that this is the one thing that has kept me awake at night, and principals all across the state of Minnesota as well. I've had lots of conversation with my colleagues in the southeastern part of the state here, and the Gopher Conference, and it just the collaboration has been great. I wish that maybe we could have it a little different way, but this is going to be a nice, very nice ceremony, we believe. Thank you to Deb Bentley and others that have contributed to help with this. We plan on the drive-in style, which is allowable from the MDE guidelines. There's two different spots that we may have it. One spot would be out in the front, and that is, there's kind of two drawings with that. The one on the right-hand side is more probably the most up-to-date and accurate based on the guidelines. And then the other place would be out back of the school, utilizing the green space on the practice fields. And so you can see in every instance that we're practicing social distancing. I've worked with Sarah Berry at Waseca County Public Health, and also Officer Martins, who also will have representation at the graduation ceremony as well. We will not have students come up to receive their diploma. Our plan is to project. We're going to have pictures taken of each one and project that picture. The only folks that will be allowed, which is allowable via the MDE guidelines, are the speakers, and they will come out and speak and go immediately back to their vehicle. We will have different screens. We're going to use a couple trailer or semi curtain trailers and a flatbed to have a stage. I'm working with Dan Petzinger at Radio Link, and we plan to FM transmit that, and we'll also live stream it on YouTube for those folks. Obviously, we have limited space, and so we're looking at one car per family in order to be able to come. Let's see if there's other things that I have missed. Oh, we will start at 8 p.m. That's a little later than normal because at the closing, we will be having a short fireworks show, which Mrs. Bentley's husband is a licensed pyrotechnician. I did get confirmation that Carly Wagner is willing to read the names of our graduates, and I think that hopefully about covers it. Dr. Carlson, did I miss anything?
I think you got the main points. Thank you. So, board members, questions. This is a little unique tonight, that we actually provide you the option, if you want to, go ahead and take action in approving the ceremony that's planned. And typically you don't. Typically this is administrative. We look to the building principal, which he has been doing and working out a plan. And it really is your decision ultimately if you want to, because of the uniqueness and the circumstances surrounding this event, and whether or not you want to do that. But this is what we are moving forward, and if you're comfortable with administration just moving forward, that's ultimately your decision, but we wanted to at least give you the opportunity to formally approve this or give us direction and if there's something else that we should be looking at doing. But I can assure you that Mr. Bunn and those involved have been closely monitoring and right now following the guidance that has been out for a little over a week. And so, again, thank you to those folks involved. So what questions, any further questions? What do you have, Wes?
Mr. Bunn, do you feel like you need more space, or are you gonna, is this all set already, I mean, pretty much, or this is all?
So I don't know if you could hear, the question is about space. And so, I don't know, Mr. Bunn, if you want to.
We believe that we have adequate space. Part of this is making sure that as well that we would like to open it up to everyone, but I think we're just not there right now. And so that's kind of the limiting part of this, and some of the concern I think that also that MDE has if we have too many folks in one area. The one thing that I did forget to mention in the plan was on the green space out back. Dale, could you bring that one back up again? We will be flipping it, and so those semi-trailers will be up near the school, and that's part of it's a safety piece for emergency personnel, and another part of that is we have some cords and things that we don't necessarily have the protection for, and so we don't want anyone driving over. So that's why we will be flipping if we're out back.
So again, Mr. Ralph, what we have been advised and what we think we can manage and have the capacity to do is to make sure that we have, can we accommodate every graduating senior and with a vehicle for their family. And this is hard because we look at graduation and as our communities want to come together to celebrate. And this is just one of those restrictions that are placed on us right now, and so we want to do everything we can to at least provide our graduates and their families this opportunity. This even means that staff aren't able to attend. So,
Well, I was just curious if it's more of an acreage thing or if it's more of a guidelines of how many people you want, because we could find you more space.
yeah, I think right now, and Mr. Bunn, you can chime in. I think it's part of it's a management. And because it's on us to enforce and make sure that the guidelines are being followed. And we know our families will, everybody involved will do what's needed to keep everybody safe, at the same time celebrating and recognizing our seniors. So it's trying to contain this, beginning with letting people in that need to be there and so on.
So, Mr. Bunn, you said you were talking to your colleagues around the area. Is everybody doing the same thing? I heard a couple rumblings about the whole football field idea, but if I understand that right, that's not following MDE guidelines then? Is that right?
That would be correct. That in amongst lots of different options, we started, throwing around, but according to the guidance, that is not allowable. Excuse me.
Is anybody doing that we know of? Is anybody gonna, or is everybody gonna kind of do the same, or about the same as what we're planning?
Not that I'm aware of that anybody is doing anything other than driving.
We haven't heard anything since May 8th. I know there were schools prior to that talking about that, but if you've heard anything since May 8th, we would be surprised. So,
Okay, thank you.
I think this is a time we as board members need to respect the fact that the administration needs to closely follow the recommendation by MDE. And again, to Travis's point, there are a variety of opinions out there of what the perfect graduation ceremony could look like and should look like. But the bottom line is MDE is watching this very closely, and it is in our best interest as a district to follow their guidelines precisely. And again, I feel that support from the board in making a motion and approving this plan shows the unity of the district. And again, is it perfect? Absolutely not. We all want to do all we can for this graduating class, but under the circumstances, the safety is the #1 priority, and the guidelines put forth by MDE, it would be very dangerous to sway from those guidelines.
I did want to add one more item that, again, the Minnesota School Board Association has continued to provide their guidance of how to navigate this. Specifically, those school districts who are considering a parking lot or drive-in concept ceremony as we are. And so they have given a strong recommendation to do things such as make sure with your liability insurance to make sure, because it's on us. If we do this, the enforcement is on the school district, and so we have to make sure that we are following those guidelines. And then also, so we are doing that. Mr. Bunn already acknowledged working closely with our law enforcement and our county health department. And so we have been doing that as well. And then another suggestion, check with our legal counsel, and we've done that as well. So I wanted the board to know that we have followed those recommendations as well.
How do we plan on informing the public or the communities as to how this is all working? I mean, I saw it was in the local paper, but that was the original plan, which is already outdated. And then, so there's the communication piece, but then there's also, if we're in the parking lot, how do you stop people from just like standing on the sidewalk or standing on private property behind us kind of thing? Or don't we worry about that?
Well, the private property piece behind us is going to be tough. But I would say the other piece, and I spoke to Officer Martins, he would assist us, and a couple other officers would assist us in that scenario. Hopefully we would not get to that. I believe we're just going to have to communicate out that graduation this year will be for families only, and that'll be hard, but it is what has to happen.
It would be great if the weather cooperates and we're able to be on the practice fields. I think that alleviates a lot of tight concerns.
Any other
I'd like
questions?
to make a Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure all questions were answered, but I would entertain a motion to approve the ceremony as presented if there's a motion out there.
I'll make a motion to approve the graduation ceremony.
I will make that motion to go with the administration's recommendation for the ceremony.
We'll give you a chance to second it.
You can have a second, too.
I'll second it.
Motion made by Mr. Mueller, seconded by Mr. Routh to approve the graduation ceremony as presented. Is there any further discussion? Ms. Flatness, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Sure. Karen Blackness, aye. Joanne Maloney,
Aye.
Rich Mueller,
Aye.
Travis Ralph,
Aye.
Neil Slake,
Aye.
Dan Schmidt,
Aye.
Rick Schultz.
Aye. Motion carries. Moving on to the Area Learning Center Cooperative Agreement. Dr. Carlson, please.
The board is asked to approve an agreement. This is something new. And it involves 4 school districts, Waseca, the JWP, and the Waterville schools, and us. And this is not a new partnership, but it's an agreement that we have not had in place. So with area learning centers, school districts are to have a collaborative agreement in place, and we have not had that. So I have been working with those other superintendents to draft this document, and we simply ask for the board's approval. This doesn't change anything about the relationship that we have had with those school districts. We utilize this program is based in Waseca. We have utilized that program. We've also utilized another area learning center for ALC as well. So, but there's other things that we are required if we, for example, run a targeted services program, which we do at the elementary, for example. We need to work that through an area learning center, an ALC, and this would be that. So part of the reason is we just haven't had this in place, which we've needed to get that done. And so some of the things I just want to point out that we feel that as far as the board's impact, even you might see the governing board here, we believe that we are within the acceptable parameters that this governing board can simply consist of the superintendents of the 4 school districts. And so, so it doesn't right now have a requirement that a school board member serve on this at this time. So anyway, happy to answer questions as best as I can. Otherwise, looking for motion for consideration to approve this learning cooperative agreement with those school districts as presented.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion made by Mr. Schlake, seconded by Ms. Maloney to approve the Area Learning Cooperative Agreement with Waseca, GWP, and WEAM Public Schools as presented. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Excuse me, someday I will. As soon as this is over, I'll get onto this roll call vote. I promise. Ms. Flatness, please.
Karen Blackness, aye. Joanne Maloney,
Aye.
Rich Mueller,
Aye.
Travis Ralph,
Aye.
Neil Slake,
Aye.
Dan Schmidt,
Aye.
Rick Schultz.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. And now moving on to distant learning grading. Dr. Carlson, please.
With the distance learning program, I'm going to have Mr. Bunn and Mr. Anderson really explain kind of the progress we've made as far as determining the assessment or how we are assessing the students when it comes to issuing actually a grade or a progress report or mark. And so this isn't typically something the board needs to or comes to your attention of how we grade students. But in this case, it's been recommended that we do, because of the exceptional, with the distance learning and some of the changes that we've had to incur, and I think it was advisable that we bring this to the board for your consideration of what our principals and key staff have put together. This is something that has been progressing. It's ever since we started officially on March 30th, when our distance learning plan started. We may have thought what it might look like at that time, but also I think our staff and principals, as we have gone through the weeks, we've learned a few things that has impacted, I think, what you see tonight. So with that, we are going to ask the board for your consideration to approve the plans that are presented by the two principals. And so I'll let them start. We'll start with the elementary plan and recommendation with Mr. Anderson. And then we will ask, though, I think we have this on one motion, so both the plans together. Mr. Anderson. Mr. Anderson, are you?
We've been meeting for a few weeks at the elementary to determine the best way to report progress to families. And we have this divided into 3 areas, beginning with our bridges through grade 2. And what families will notice is that our current report card, which is standards based, will not be marked for 4th quarter, but what families will see is a summary progress report for each student based on their progress since quarter 3 through the 4th quarter. Summary of activities that have been completed during the 4th quarter, the progress that the student has made, and then also their growth information for the 4th quarter. Our 3rd grade staff is most comfortable and feels that using a letter system of ESPN, excellent, satisfactory, progressing, and not progressing, will be the best way for them to communicate the progress that each 3rd grade student has made during the 4th quarter. Our 4th and 5th grade staff is confident and will continue to use what is in place. They have been using our JMC reporting system for student progress, growth, and also communication with families. So that will remain the same. Each family there at the bottom of the information that you see on the screen, there is a message regarding the documentation during this time from March 16th through June 30th, May 28th for us, and just information about the use of those grades and reporting.
Any questions? We can come back to Mr. Anderson's report, but a recommendation. Any questions right now that board members may have? Well, we'll bring up the secondary. Okay, Mr. Bunn?
Okay, so we will also have a similar note that was on Doug's slide. We need to figure out how to get that note in about COVID. But for us, it's an interesting scenario, and this too has been a discussion amongst all principals around, and we bounced a lot of things back and forth from each other. And what we came up with was that, you know, some amount of choice. We will use traditional grading, almost traditional, not completely, but traditional grading, or a pass, no credit system. And we will have parents and or kids indicate what sort of system that they would like. For the most part, it'll be more of, we believe, tell us if you want the pass no credit option. PSEO and concurrent classes need to follow whatever grading scale that was set forth by the College of Attendance. High school classes will take quarter 3 and 4, determine an average. That'll be the semester grade. Now, you'll see down below, we made some adjustments in what we consider some typical percentages, and that's kind of, those were discussions and somewhat similar to some other districts that are choosing to head this route too, I believe. I worked exceptionally close to Medford regarding this in particular. Middle school classes will use the fourth quarter to determine their final grade. In order for somebody to receive a pass, you have to at least average or get 50% for quarter 3 and 4 for the high school. Anyone choosing that pass no credit option, that will not impact your grade point average at all. So that would be an option for folks if they would like that, they're not happy about with where they're at grade wise, they would have the option to do the pass no credit with no impact on their GPA. Students intending to go to a 2 or 4 year college would be best to make sure to get some advice from a potential college or advisor regarding this grading system and the potential for future use. But again, we will put that note on the grading part of it. Typically, we haven't had 100% unified, this is an A, this is a B, this is a C. However, with the exception of the college courses, I am proposing, or we are proposing, that an A would go down to 85%, a B down to 70, 60 would be a C, 50 to 59 is passing, and 0 to 49 would equal no credit. So hopefully these options make sense, and you know, this, to Mr. Schlake's question, some of this has come out of some of the struggles that students have had with distance learning, that it hasn't been an easy journey. There's other factors that have impacted students as well, including mental health and some other things that have gone on. So we are not alone in this. This is pretty common. So this is the system that we feel would be best.
So, Mr. Bunn, just a clarification again that for a student who would choose to, for a particular course, to do the pass rather than the traditional grading, that GPA would not be impacted. And so at the end of the year, they would probably have what they had at the end of semester 1 as far as GPA.
Correct.
Board members, questions on either one of these plans?
So the pass-fail option, you can select just staff for just one course, or is it something you have to take globally?
They would have the option. of an individual class, I kind of want to see where we're at in terms of, how many folks are going to want to go that route. But I guess it's kind of a wait and see to what sort of response we get.
Okay, thank you.
Is there gonna be something sent home to parents by email on that choice of pass, no credit, probably tomorrow or the next day then?
That would be correct, Karen.
Okay.
Well, whenever you're ready, we did put a motion simply to approve. We are calling this, identifying that as the COVID-19 distance learning plan grading system as presented by the building principals.
I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Flatness, seconded by Mr. Schlake to approve the COVID-19 distance learning plan grading system as presented by the building principals. Is there any further discussion? Ms. Flatness for a roll call vote, please.
Karen Flatness, aye. Joanne Maloney.
Aye.
Rich Mueller.
Aye.
Travis Ralph.
Aye.
Neil Schlake.
Aye.
Dan Schmidt.
Aye.
Rick Schultz.
Aye. Motion carries. That concludes our business for this evening. At this time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Mr. Schlake, seconded by Mr. Routh to adjourn. Ms. Flatness, roll call vote, please.
Karen Flatness, aye. Joanne Maloney.
Aye.
Rich Mueller.
Aye.
Travis Ralph.
Aye.
Neil Schlake.
Aye.
Dan Schmidt.
Aye.
Rick Schultz.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.